Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh. Jai Sangat Ji, and welcome to the Breakfast Show from London studio. Sangat Ji, I hope you've had a very good week ahead. Hope you are all in Chaddi Kala, as I always say, and your families as well. So thank you for joining us today. Thank you for always giving us your support, as you always do. Before I introduce my guest, Sangat Ji, I'd just like to make an announcement. So you know that Kal was Jagraj Baji's funeral that took place. So tomorrow we have the program that's taking place at Havelock Gurdwara. And please, ਤੁਸੀਂ try kariyo to come to Havelock Gurdwara if you can. Please spread the word to your family and friends. Start to Singh Sabha Gurdwara, Havelock Road, 5 baje shuru hona until 9 baje. There's going to be katha and kirtan, and it's all, you know, in dedication and memory of our brother Jagraj Baji. So please try to attend, and please spread the word, whether you spread it on social media, you know, message your friends, let everybody know, but please try to be there, because one of the things that Baji did say to us, you know, if there's any of the messages that have affected us, let's try to make that difference. So I say, Kathe, as a family, let's come together to show that support and to jap Vaheguru Dana, you know, because there is no better way for us going forward in this janam that we have, our swas karas, let's remember Vaheguru. And then Sangat Ji, I'd just like to say to you as well, as you know, Sikh Channel always like to bring you many different guests, a variety of guests, but we also have some guests that are so inspirational for us that ਅਸੀਂ ਵੀ ਸਿੱਖਦੇ ਹਾਂ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਤੋਂ, you know, and you probably find it interesting as well. So we've decided to bring in the studio with us today a very inspirational, a very inspiring person who I've learned a lot from, Sidhu QC, who's here with us today, and you're familiar of him because he's been on Sikh Channel several times, and you know, is from Oxford University, and I'm actually, you know, learning so much from him that we had to bring him back so that we could bring you some interesting facts and figures on some political side as well as many other things. So let's introduce Joe and find out a bit more about this survey that took place last year, but I'll bring you some more details once I speak to Joe. Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa.
Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh. Good morning to you, Minreet.
Morning, Joe. So, you know, absolute pleasure to have you back, as it always is, in the studio.
It's always a privilege to come back on the Sikh Channel and talk to you about some of the issues of the day.
Yes, definitely.
And I'm very happy to be here.
So I just want to say, Sangat Ji, so Joe Sidhu, he is the country's QC, the country's leading criminal barrister from the Asian community, and born and bred in Southall. So Joe, as I always say to you, I don't know how you manage to have such prim and proper English for us here in West London. It's always the, you know, the slang that we have. But could you just give us, I mean, we've got an intro on you, but just a little bit, you know, about yourself currently, what you're working on, what interesting projects are happening at the moment with yourself.
So, Minreet, the work that I do is very serious level crime.
Hanji.
So the kind of cases that I'm involved in are murders and terrorism and big frauds. So anything that involves a serious allegation against a person is the kind of stuff that I get involved in.
Hanji.
And my work takes me all around the country. At the moment, I'm doing a big case in Bradford.
Okay.
Last week, I was in Wolverhampton.
Yeah.
Later on this year, I'll be at the Old Bailey in London. And it's very interesting work. It brings me into contact with people that normal, ordinary folks would not bump into in the street, because obviously people who are charged with serious things, they may be innocent, they may actually be guilty, but it's heavy duty stuff, and I very much enjoy my work.
And that was what I was going to ask you. Do you actually enjoy what you do, and what would be the reason for why you do?
I do, because I really feel, you know, we're going to be talking about politics on this program, and I think it's really important that people who live in a society understand how the legal system works. I mean, one of the complaints that many grown-up people make is that when I was at school, no one told me about the law, no one explained the do's and don'ts, the rights and wrongs.
Yes.
And I think, you know, the legal system is absolutely critical to the functioning of any healthy democracy. If you think of the great leaders of the Indian independence movement, whether it was Nehru or Gandhi or Jinnah, these were people who were trained as barristers in London. They understood the importance of having a developed, mature legal system to ensure that there would be cohesion within society, because you can't have a healthy, efficient society without having rules which tell you what you can and what you cannot do. The important thing is that people need to understand those rules. So one of the things that I was drawn to when I qualified to become a lawyer and was called to the bar in London was the idea that I should be able to spread understanding of how the British legal system works. And remember as well, Minreet, that our legal system here in the UK was exported worldwide. So there are a number of other democracies which model their systems on ours, including the United States.
Well, Joe, on that note, so obviously, our topic will be on politics. So, Joe, last year, there was like the biggest ever survey of UK Sikhs that was covered number of different areas, so such as like the Sikh identity, discrimination, hate crime, grooming, education, employment and contribution to society, as well as political activism and representation. And then there was relevance to the Sikh manifesto issues. So just one of the, I mean, I've got the report here and there's lots of things that we're going to talk about today, but one of them that I picked up on was Sikhs had the highest turnout of any group in the last general election. So they were 5 times more likely to be members of political parties. Can you tell us a little bit about, about this point, elaborate a bit more on that? Like what's your, in terms of being in the role that you're in, Sikh representation, and them, to be 5 times more likely to be members of political parties?
Well, that was a very interesting survey, Minreet, because the Sikh community within the UK hadn't really come under scrutiny in terms of its habits, its attitudes, its views about society, its levels of participation. So the survey concentrated on things like education, attitudes towards discrimination, employment, but it also focused on the issue of the underrepresentation of Sikhs at a higher level, particularly the parliamentary level within this country. And I think it's a really important point, and it's important because a lot of people are very puzzled about that. When you look at ethnic minority participation in Parliament, whether it's as an MP or as part of the House of Lords, when you deal with other communities, whether it's the black community or the Hindu community or the Muslim community, what you have seen is actually quite a healthy increase in the numbers of people from those communities sitting in the Houses of Parliament. When it comes to the Sikh community, one of the biggest complaints has been from the Sikh community, why don't we have more MPs? Why don't we have more Lords? What has gone wrong here? Are we doing something wrong in the way that we have participated in politics? Because if you go to local councils around the country, what you will find is that there's quite a large number of Sikhs who are sitting as councillors.
Yeah, they are.
It's a big issue because, of course, council politics is very different from national politics. Deciding issues of local concern is one thing. It's an important thing. You're representing a ward or within your borough in London or in a district council outside the capital. It's a very important function to play, and it's something which people do on a part-time basis. Often you'll have somebody who has a day job, but they also sit as an elected councillor. Sometimes they might be retired and they sit as an elected councillor. Being a parliamentarian is a full-time job, and you're dealing with a large constituency. These constituencies are several hundreds of thousands in terms of a borough, but within an individual constituency it might actually be about 65,000, 70,000. It's a lot of people that you're representing. The question is, why aren't there more Sikhs in Parliament? This is an important question for Sikhs to address. And one of the reasons why there is a sense of being puzzled about this is it's not as if Sikhs are a minority within the UK who have retreated into themselves. The level of Sikh integration that's reported actually in that survey indicates that Sikhs are very well integrated. Sikhs have a high level of participation in terms of voting. They want to have a part to play in deciding who their leaders are. But they are not the leaders.
Well then, Joe, that's what leads on to my next, not really question, but obviously, well, it is in the sense of, so we've got our first 2 Sikh MPs. We've got Dhanmanjit Desi, from Slough.
Which is great news.
Right, then we've got Preet Shergill from Birmingham. So we've got 1 female, 1 male, brilliant, But in 2017, we've had that, which is brilliant. It's brilliant to see that, but you're right, we're so far behind from, say, countries like Canada, for example. So having that, this year, they've been selected, it's brilliant. What do you think that's going to mean going forward for Sadi Jedi Sikh community hege or Sadi Jedi youngsters we hege hun dekhde are? Do you think that's going to bring the barrier down, that more can come forward, or is there anything more we need to do? Just if we could talk a little bit about that.
I think the fact that both of them have been elected as MPs is an immense tribute to their hard work and to the faith of the people who have voted for them. They come from constituencies the constituencies they represent are ones that they have grown up in. They therefore have a very close connection in terms of their social network, in terms of their emotional feeling towards their constituency, which is really important for an MP who wants to work hard for their constituency. But there's still only 2 Sikh MPs. And so therefore there is a deficit which needs to be filled from the Sikh community. And the question is, why aren't there more? Okay, my own view about this, Minreet, is that Sikhs have been incredibly hardworking at making sure that they are involved in different parts of society. So we have Sikhs who are professionals. We have Sikhs who are manual workers. Yeah. We have a high level of involvement of Sikh women in the workforce, one of the highest levels, because we don't have the same sort of stigma attached to a woman working. In fact, we encourage it because within the Sikh religion, gender equality is meant to be a central part of that.
Yes.
But one of the areas of society that we haven't penetrated as well as we have elsewhere is the field of politics at a parliamentary level. And the question, why haven't we done that, I think in part at least, is answered by this. Sikhs are very active within their religious setting.
Yes.
When it comes to Gurdwara elections, there's a lot of energy, Minreet, which is put into that. People want to be elected to a committee, people want to be involved in the running of a Gurdwara. Yes. And there's so much energy given to that, but so little energy given to participation in constituency politics that we've ended up with a very strange situation where people are more preoccupied with who's running the Gurdwara than who's running their constituency. Yeah. And this has been at the cost of the Sikh community, because without representatives in Parliament, a lot of the issues which are particularly important and sensitive to Sikhs up and down the country, and indeed worldwide, they never get an airing, they never get debated. And whilst we can only cross our fingers and hope that MPs from other communities will take up some of these issues, in the end, diversity actually means that we need people in Parliament who look like us, who have similar attitudes, and who therefore care about the issues that a lot of Sikhs care about, and are prepared to actually go forward with those issues on a national level and give it the oxygen of publicity that it deserves and needs.
And because Joe, that's interesting. So in the report, nearly 3/4 of Sikhs are dissatisfied with their MPs on taking forward Sikh issues. As you said, they would feel more comfortable if they saw somebody looking like them within Parliament. But then the fact is, this is only 1 in 9 Sikhs feel Parliament effectively represents them.
Yeah, so that's a very worryingly low number. If only almost 10% of Sikhs feel that Parliament isn't actually doing for them what it should be doing for them. Remember, we're dealing with a community that has high levels of employment, therefore is paying its taxes, is contributing to the exchequer. It should be expecting something in return in terms of representation. And that means, of course, it's not just Sikh issues. There's many issues which affect the Sikh community which are general to the whole country. But it does mean that where there are issues which are particularly sensitive to the Sikh community, there is a lack of faith in the Sikh community, in its parliamentary representatives, that they are going to take these issues forward. And actually, Minreet, the proof of the pudding is in the eating. Even if you look at Asian MPs in the UK who represent constituencies with high levels of Sikhs, these Sikh issues have not been taken forward. And hence you see a building up of frustration. Frustration within the Sikh community that we are, by and large, law-abiding citizens, paying our taxes, doing good deeds, doing our seva within the community. We don't just focus on our own Sikh community, we go out there and help other people as well. And generally speaking, Sikhs don't complain loudly on a national level. They don't bang the drum on a national level. But the cost of that being quiet and so tolerant of the deficit which they're suffering means that we haven't really had a push to see more Sikh MPs and Sikh lords and ladies within Parliament. And this is a real problem, because my concern is this. The generation of Sikhs who have grown up, the second generation and the third generation now as we see it, the levels of educational attainment have been significantly higher than it is for other communities, okay? Generally because we put such a big premium on education, Sikhs are driven by the importance of developing knowledge and skills and getting jobs within really good trades and professions. So many of our young people have ended up focusing on their careers, but have been put off the idea of going into politics. This is a big problem, because we have so many talented young men and women out there who have so much to contribute through the professions that they do, whose knowledge base is so helpful potentially to their constituencies. They would be ideal candidates to become MPs. I believe many of those people, those younger people, are making a conscious decision to avoid politics, and there are reasons for this.
Okay, why?
I think, first of all, they've been put off. They've been put off by the way in which Sikhs as a community conduct their own internal politics. We are not actually, as a community, operating cohesively, operating as one on issues which are of direct concern to the Sikh community. We argue too much. I'll be honest with you. We argue too much. We fight. There's infighting constantly within the Sikh community.
Yeah.
Most of the infighting is focused on who's running the Gurdwara.
Yeah, I understand.
And young people, I'm afraid, Minreet, and this is a message to those people out there who are involved. And I'm sure, you know, in many ways, because the Gurdwaras are a centerpiece of different communities up and down the UK, they do their seva, they make their big contributions.
Yeah.
And those who are involved in running the Gurdwaras should be credited with the work that they do.
Yes.
But I would appeal to them and say to them this: if they don't bring young people into politics by supporting them, then we will find that there will be a level of frustration within the Sikh community which will continue to boil over. Yeah. And eventually what will happen is young people will be either so turned off or they will move into extremist politics. Okay?
Yeah.
And this is a big worry for us. In order to make sure that Sikhs continue to be what they are, which is mainstream, law-abiding as a community, you need to have encouraged younger people to come into politics and bring their skills with them. If you put them off, what happens is that the older politicians eventually, of course, will move on, will die, and won't be around anymore, and there'll be no one left to replace them. And that's not a satisfactory situation to be left in.
And Joe, okay, leading on from that, you've said about bringing them in with their qualifications and encouraging them. For somebody who's watching who may not necessarily have the educational qualifications in this background on the political side, could they come into getting involved into politics? What education qualifications does somebody need? You know, where could people start? If we could have like a little kind of like a dummy guide, but for somebody that's watching that could think, you know what, actually I'm in this career and I'm not actually enjoying what I'm doing, but you know, I can see, you know, our band Bra representing as MPs now. I want to, this is something I could do. Where do they need to start from? What's the journey? And you know, what is it that they may not necessarily need but could get into it?
What you've got to have, if you're interested in going into politics, is an interest in political issues. Okay. Being a politician is not some sort of tick box thing where you think, well, I've been a doctor, or I've been an accountant, or I've been a lawyer. I'm bored. I'm going to go and become a politician. You must have a feeling inside yourself that you want to contribute something to your community. Many Sikhs who do seva in different ways in their life, not just through the Gurdwara, but do it otherwise in the voluntary sector, are natural politicians because their instincts are to actually reach out and help their communities. If you're a younger person listening to this program and you think, actually, you know, that's something that's important to me, is to make my contribution to society. I don't just want to be an other. I don't just want to have get a degree and then go and get a job and just please my parents or have a certain status. I actually want to do something more broadly within society. And you have a passion for political issues, then you should think about going into politics. This isn't a party political thing. It's not about whether you are a Conservative, a Liberal Democrat, or a Labour person. It's about whether you think it's important to have change in society in a positive way, and you believe that you can make some sort of contribution to that. So that's the first thing. You need to have an interest. The second thing is you need to understand the political system. Let me give you, by way of an example, myself, Minreet. So when I went to school in Southall, I went to a comprehensive school, then I went to a university, a very good university, and I studied politics there because politics was in my blood. I was brought up in a household where we had lots of political debate. My father, my mother, my brothers, we constantly talked about issues which were in the national political domain and it really enthralled me. So I studied politics. It was my intention as a boy from Southall that one day maybe I will go off and become a politician and I could serve my community just as the way that Preet Shergill is serving her community in Birmingham, and we have the same thing with Andesi in Slough. Here's the problem. If you don't understand the political system, this is where you will go wrong. I ended up as a Labour councillor in the borough of Ealing, which is where Southall is. And I ended up as a Labour councillor, not in Southall, but in the other part of the borough, which was Ealing. And the reason why that happened is because Asian local politicians in Southall, who are very insecure men, and it is, I'm afraid to say, men, who dominate politics, didn't really like the idea of accommodating a younger person who was born and brought up in this country. And I have to say, I always pay tribute to the contributions that Asian councillors have made throughout the country, but they need to understand that there is a shelf life, that you can't carry on being a politician just because it's convenient to you or it brings you status. You have to recognize that what is really important, if you care about your society and your community, is succession planning. You have to think about how do we bring the younger generation in.
Yes.
And one of the biggest failings, not just of the Sikh community, other communities as well, is the failure to encourage youngsters actively, not just to say, and you'll hear this all the time, and believe you me, I heard it a lot as well. Oh, it's very nice, young man, that you're getting into politics. You should come into politics. It's very good that you come into politics. But the minute you become serious about getting involved in politics, and it involves some of the older politicians giving up power, then it becomes a problem.
Yeah.
And just another simple example. About 10 years ago, I stood for the Labour Party ticket in Ealing Southall when the previous MP Pyara Singh Kabra had died. Suddenly there was a by-election, and the Labour Party had to elect someone who was going to be the next candidate. I was born and brought up in Southall, school there. Felt that this is actually a good place for me because I know the community very well indeed. And I tried to become the Labour candidate, and of course it's a Labour seat, so it would have meant effectively becoming the MP. And I was whittled down to the last two, myself and the now current MP, who ended up doing a hustings. And this is to illustrate the problem we've got. When we went for the hustings, which was in a local high school in Southall, the now MP made his pitch, I then made my pitch. One of the questions from the floor of this hustings debate was from an older Asian gentleman who put his hand up and he said, "I have a question for you, Mr. Sidhu." And I said, "Yes, sir, please tell me what the question is," thinking it would be a very interesting question. And the question was this: don't you think you're a bit young to be an MP?
Really?
Minreet, I was at that time, I think, 41 years old. Don't you think, he said to me, you're a bit young to be an MP? Now tell me this, is that question asked of white politicians, of black politicians, of Muslim politicians, of Hindu politicians? Do people say, are you too young to be an MP at the age of 41? Was Tony Blair too young to be Prime Minister when he was 41? What about Barack Obama? What about all the other politicians that we see in Parliament today, some of whom are actually in their early 20s? The youngest MP who was elected, I think, in 2015 was a Scottish MP who was only 21 years of age. Why do Asian people, particularly the older Asian generation, use youth as something which is a disadvantage rather than an advantage? It's obviously a way of keeping youth in their place. No serious person would ever say that someone who was 40 plus years of age was too young to be an MP. And I'm afraid, Minreet, this is where the problem lies. If the older generation of politicians doesn't understand and understand very quickly that they need to allow other people to come on board, I'm afraid young people will continue to be turned off going into politics from the Sikh community.
No, Joe, that's really interesting. And we're going to be going for a short break, but that is a very interesting point. I'd like to say as well, Sangatji, we're going to be taking some calls after the break. The number to call is 0208 573 1717. But as Joe just said, you know, for the youth, if you're watching, or even for the parents that are watching, if you have any questions that you want to ask Joe, now's the time, because we're here to inspire and educate the youth. So please make sure that ਤੁਸੀਂ ਸਾਨੂੰ phone ਕਰਿਓ after the break with any questions. Even take a look at the UK Sikh report if you'd like to, and you have any questions around that. Please give us a call 0208 573 1717 after the break. And in the meanwhile, Sangatji, please have a char cup, and you know, maybe if you want to do a little bit of Simran as well, as we know we have, you know, this is the month where we should be doing our Simran and our Part. Please do that and join us after the break, Sangatji, with your questions. Please make sure you do call us. Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh.